Nosso primeiro contato com vida extraterrestre pode se dar em Europa, uma lua de Júpiter. O DET-X, um hidrorobô, está sendo projetado para pensar, andar e explorar sem a ajuda do homem.
That is all to be done by the robot itself. We're not going to be guiding it to do that. That's going to be a big step forward in what we would call robot science autonomy.
Seria como HAL, o computador do filme 2001, Uma Odisseia no Espaço.
Where it literally hit a button and let it dive below the surface, and we won't see it again until it tells us what's down there.
O DET-X será capaz de extrair e analisar amostras por conta própria enquanto navega pelo oceano.
This little tube you see down here will pull in water samples and store them in 1-liter bags. We have 5 of them on board. But before it does that, it actually powers through a series of micro pumps over here on the left and brings it into an onboard microscope. And that microscope will take images of what's in the water down to about 5 microns. So we can see most of the typical types of microbial life from 5 to 200 microns on screen. The robot will use that to discriminate, to determine if there's life, and then grab a sample.
O DET-X e seus sistemas devem ser diminuídos para funcionar no espaço. Além disso, precisam ser testados sob o gelo.
We are testing this in Antarctica to make sure it all works totally under ice.
The question of life on Europa is probably the big, unknown, because that would change our whole view of the universe, basically. I mean, if this little moon sitting out there in this hostile environment of Jupiter can have life form on it, that means that probably tells us that, life is almost everywhere.
The science is there. I mean, I think searching for life is one of the most compelling things that we can do as not only as scientists, but as a race, as human beings.
É um grande salto, e não apenas para a humanidade.
No, for robot kind.
Uma das características mais impressionantes de Júpiter não pode ser vista. É bem maior do que a Grande Mancha Vermelha, mais dinâmica do que as correntes de jato e mais mortífera do que qualquer ameaça que conhecemos.
You have one of the most powerful radiation environments in the solar system, aside from the sun.
The magnetic field of Jupiter is the largest entity, I believe, in the solar system.
É uma bolha de 700 milhões de quilômetros de extensão, repleta de partículas eletricamente carregadas. Trata-se da magnetosfera de Júpiter.
The sun's sitting here putting out the solar wind. And the solar wind is charged particles of protons and electrons.
Essas partículas se deslocam a 1.500.000 quilômetros por hora.
And Jupiter basically captures these protons, electrons, all these charged particles like electrical currents, and it has it then in space circling around Jupiter.
Nenhuma palavra é capaz de exprimir a enormidade desse fenômeno.
The magnetosphere of Jupiter is the biggest object in the solar system. It's a lot bigger than the sun.
Comparações ajudam a entender melhor esse colosso.
If it were visible in the night sky, it would be many, many times bigger than the moon. It's enormous, even though it's 5 times as far away from Earth as the sun is, it still would look immense in the night sky.
Se fosse visível, assumiria uma forma familiar, a de uma biruta. Um segmento arredondado afasta-se do planeta em uma direção, enquanto uma cauda estende-se em outra. Esse fenômeno alcança a órbita externa de Saturno. Júpiter gera mais de 10 milhões de amperes de corrente elétrica.
The biggest planet in the solar system can conduct electricity all the way through it and around it.
A condutividade cria um fenômeno que podemos ver quando as partículas carregadas escapam.
Jupiter has auroras because when those particles leak in and crash into the upper atmosphere, it glows, just as Earth has auroras.
Essas luzes sobrenaturais são 1000 vezes mais fortes do que as auroras boreais dos polos norte e sul. Chegam a ter 2000 quilômetros de extensão. Se pudéssemos ficar sob elas, cobririam todo o firmamento, movendo-se à velocidade de 15.000 quilômetros por hora. O campo magnético de Júpiter é um monstro e emite um rugido. Na verdade, está falando conosco nesse momento. Júpiter. O gigante do sistema solar tem algo a dizer se prestarmos atenção.
We can hear what we call lion roars because it has this roaring sound. We can hear whistler modes. We can hear hiss and whistles that are going pew, pew, pew. And these are all indications of dynamics, things that are happening in the magnetosphere now.
Ao dirigir por uma estrada escura e deserta, seu rádio AM pode sintonizar os estranhos sons da magnetosfera de Júpiter. Os sons podem durar no mínimo poucos segundos, no máximo 2 minutos, e ocorrem a cada 1 ou 2 horas.
Most of it sounds like static, but every once in a while you pick up something that sounds like a rising tone or a falling tone.
Alguns descreveram sons que pareciam bicadas de pica-pau ou ondas batendo na praia. É um barulho perturbador. Mas a origem desses sons permaneceu um mistério até que a Voyager 2 passasse pela magnetosfera em 1979.
Nobody really understood for a long time how those signals were generated. So that was one of the things that was on my mind when I got interested in Jupiter. What in the world was going on with these radio emissions?
Esse é um dos poucos segredos de Júpiter finalmente desvendados.
And that answered some questions, but it raised new ones. And I think that's the way it should be. If you don't have questions, it gets kind of boring and dull. So I think that the fact that the planets don't give up their secrets easily, or the universe doesn't, it's part of the game. It's what makes it interesting.
Júpiter continua surpreendendo e desconcertando os cientistas. Como em 1979, quando descobriu-se que Júpiter tinha um anel. Não é nada comparado com Saturno, mas impressiona mesmo assim.
All of the giant planets have rings, probably left over from when the planets formed. And the moons coagulated out of the gas that was there, and then it could be a failed moon. So Jupiter's ring comes from material being knocked off of one of the interior moons. So it's dust that's collected from material that's coming in from outside moons.
O anel cresce lentamente